Welcome to our workshop on foreseeable risk. We'll embark on a journey for business professionals to proactively look at their organizations, their products, services, and processes with a new focus. Within most organizations are opportunities for defective products or services to reach your customers. Typically, these defects and customer service issues are solved superficially or expediently. Sometimes they cause business leaders to be blindsided by a lawsuit. The tools of foreseeable risk will give you a unique edge in removing costly and harmful risk from your organization, products, and services. In doing so, you will create a customer base of referrals instead of those who post poor reviews or cause you warranty issues. My name is Tom Taormina. For the first 14 years of my career, I worked at NASA's Mission Control Center in Houston. I was one of the first quality control engineers as the discipline of designing quality into products was emerging. I was part of projects Gemini and Apollo. I was on duty the night of Apollo 13 and heard "Houston, we have a problem" firsthand. After NASA, I ran 3 different manufacturing companies to prove that people can be held accountable for their own work and prevent defects from reaching a customer. For the last 28 years, I've been a business consultant and have codified my experiences in 12 books. For decades, I worked closely with the American Society for Quality to evolve quality engineering into a science. I contributed to the body of knowledge for the Certified Manager of Quality and Organizational Excellence certification program. I've held that certification since 1996. I'm also a certified management consultant. I've held that certification since 1999. Currently, besides consulting, I'm a testifying expert witness in products liability, personal injury, and organizational negligence litigation. The various stages of my career have taken me to more than 700 companies. My combined experiences are the basis for the foundation of foreseeable risk, which is risk avoidance rather than risk management. Having been a member of the team that won the space race, I have a unique history of eliminating nonconformances and liabilities before they happen. Landing men on the moon and returning them home safely was more than a slogan. It was our vision, mission, values, and way of life. The Apollo 13 explosion and near disaster added a new dimension to our values. Failure is not an option. We would have never gotten to the moon with the philosophy of ignoring, assessing, and managing risk. We had to avoid it. Endowing these lessons to your business is the mission of this presentation. Companies that retain me for business, leadership, process, and quality management consulting often ask if I have experience in their particular service or product. My response is that my successes in helping companies solve problems and achieve their goals is not product or service specific. We'll learn in this presentation that all activities are a series of interrelated processes that can be designed, controlled, and measured for their outcome. I have, however, enclosed a list of products and services I've become experienced with over the last 50 years. Finally, I'm a prolific author who's passionate about business excellence and risk avoidance. I was commissioned to write my 11th book, Foreseeable Risk, by Lawyers and Judges Publishing as a desk reference for litigators, and it also has become a risk avoidance tool for enlightened business leaders. The title of my latest book, It Was Rocket Science, documents my combined experiences to provide a roadmap for enlightened business leaders that I call the Apollo Business Model. Regardless of the size or complexity of your business, organizations are complex organisms of people and processes in continual motion. They're complex systems of interrelated parts. The various elements are continually changing, growing, or dying. There are healthy organizations. There are organizations that have specific departments that have known or undiagnosed diseases. There are organizations that are terminally ill. Understanding the forensics of business organisms is critical to understanding foreseeable risk. Each organization has its own complex DNA. Creating a map of your DNA is one of the most powerful tools for diagnosing problems, avoiding defects, improving products and services, and achieving your goals. If you cannot draw an accurate and meaningful map of your organization and its processes, you may already have undiagnosed and potentially fatal diseases. Continue the living organism metaphor. Each organization has an innate pathology created by its founders. The genetics are in a continual state of mutation as the company grows and changes. Unfortunately, many organizations are born with genetic defects. The founders may not have put in place a healthy foundation of vision, mission, and values for each person to follow as a roadmap. They may have put themselves in a position where outside viruses can harm or destroy the health of the company. Dormant problems of the past can also reignite organizational diseases. As each new employee joins the organism, there's a chance that they will bring their own strain of diseases and infect your company. Without early diagnosis and continual examinations and treatments, companies can die prematurely and needlessly. Taken the creative license to adopt names for some of these pathological diseases. The first is enterprise entropy. Entropy is the inevitable and steady deterioration of a system that's not continually examined and maintained. Organizations decay when the leaders spend more time working at the business and solving problems than they do working on the business and its ongoing health. The second phrase I've borrowed from futurist Joel Barker. He teaches us about the power of paradigms. Paradigms are a belief system we each have that form our patterns of thinking, behavior, and how we interact with the rest of the world. Paradigm paralysis is being so strongly invested in your beliefs and convictions that you're fundamentally closed to new ideas and methods. An example might be the centuries-old belief that man would never fly. Myopic vision is my definition of individuals within organizations who are so invested in the philosophy, technology, and nuances of their disciplines that they can't see the big picture of how their products and services interact with other processes and systems. The result is time wasted and resources beyond what is necessary to achieve the mission at hand. It also invokes stress on those who are interfacing with the myopic visionaries. One of the traits of my quality control background is the need to represent concepts in rows and columns or normalized distribution curves. The bell curve on this slide is my representation of the life cycle of a business organization. It depicts the success potential being inversely proportional to the risk potential. The lowest risk is in the early stages. The greatest risk is near the time the original entrepreneurs are in burnout and looking to sell or sunset their business. It predicts that the balance point of greatest success with minimal risk is at the peak of the company's potential. Unfortunately, companies that are approaching their peak success potential may also be ticking time bombs waiting to explode. Success often creates an aura of invincibility. The leaders are so busy with the benefits of success that they are oblivious to invading diseases. While their processes may be in control, they're not looking to foreseeable risk and potential future problems created by success. Key success indicators seldom include potential liability and risk. The thrill of success often ignores the subtle symptoms of impending problems. An example is leaders who see customer complaints and warranty issues as a normal part of their business. They are not. They are alarm bells that one or more processes are out of control limits and they are not being detected and corrected. Whether you're building bridges, manufacturing toasters, or selling hot dogs on a street corner, There are innate risks and liabilities in every business. In our culture of high velocity and exposure to new information on a daily basis, we're seldom programmed to follow the old cliche, look before you leap. In keeping up with changing trends and markets, businesses often act before they research and plan. The tools of foreseeable risk give you the built-in pause button to assess the potential for disaster before starting or changing business processes, products, or services. Awareness of potential risk and its consequences is the first step. To begin, we need to understand that there are two types of risk. The first is called assumed risk. It's associated with innately dangerous products and services, such as explosives or mountain climbing equipment. The launch pad fire of Apollo 1 was an assumed risk because we had so many new systems all being tested at the same time. The Apollo 1 investigation revealed a series of unforeseen events converging at one moment in time to cause a catastrophic failure. The graphic depicts the greatest potential for assumed risk early in the life cycle of a business or project. There was a terrible example of assumed risk a few years ago at a local doctor's office. A patient who had a vasectomy had inseminated his wife and she gave birth to an unwanted child. The husband became enraged, stormed into the doctor's office, and shattered the wrist of a surgeon with a shotgun blast. By any standard, this tragedy was unforeseeable. Assumed risk is a dangerous place to live, or not. The second type of risk is foreseeable risk. The Apollo 13 explosion was a foreseeable risk. There were processes in place to ensure that the oxygen tanks were safe for use. Human error circumvented a procedure, and a known defective oxygen tank was installed in the service module. In business, success breeds complacency. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. In the culture of foreseeable risk, if a process is working, continually assess it to ensure it's not approaching control limits and is effective for its intended purpose. Create simulations and scenarios of what problems could result from one or several processes going out of control. It's folklore that companies cannot foresee every potential problem or stop any potential defect from occurring. What we can do is ensure that a defective product or service never reaches a customer. Foreseeable risk defines a duty of care that manufacturers or service providers must exhibit. We'll get into the legal definition later. Almost everything sold for home use has a foreseeable risk. No matter how well the product is made, such as a stepladder, the manufacturer and retailer must ensure that they've taken every precaution to make the product safe for its intended use. They must also ensure that adequate warnings are on the products so that a reasonable person can use it safely. Reasonable person is another legal term that's clear as mud. That's why there's so many personal injury lawyers. In the case of this electrical outlet, the manufacturer did know the risk of selling this device because they had many returned to the retailer as defective. One of them caught fire and killed an entire family. This forensic simulation that ignored foreseeable risk led to a large financial judgment for the family of the victims. In another case involving a defective space heater, the testing room where products undergo long-term life testing was pockmarked with areas where heaters had caught on fire during the tests. Unfortunately, this case involved another fatality because foreseeable risk was ignored. Regardless of your product or service, within the processes you use to deliver them to the end user, there are predictable numbers of opportunities for nonconformities and defects to occur. Based on the level of danger or risk, you must seek out areas for potential process problems and create proactive steps to avoid them from happening. You must also continually examine how those who create the product or service can create, hide, or make defects worse. That involves ongoing training and awareness of how humans can perform differently day to day. It involves removing the opportunities for humans to make mistakes that can go undetected. Unfortunately, those who deal with the same products and services every day become unaware that their actions are subject to variability and inconsistency. Independent and routine process and training audits by a third-party expert can be very beneficial in eliminating risk in your company. This graphic represents 4 cultures typically exhibited by organizations. The most common is reactive. The organization deals with the problems as they arise. The risk level is average, and they waste time and money not anticipating problems. They also typically ignore customer complaints as a usual part of business life. Those that are unaware of foreseeable risk have not yet been involved in major warranty or liability problems. They are high risk and operating way below potential. There are too many companies that ignore risk and liability and sell products or services that have known potential for liability. It's a business model that budgets for seemingly acceptable numbers of defects and injuries. These high-risk companies actually ignore foreseeable risk to make greater profits. Sooner or later, that model always fails. Proactive companies that prevent defective products or services reaching their customers have the lowest potential risk and typically are the most successful. Finally, humans have a unique talent for using products badly. For whatever reason, we find ways to use products designed for one specific use to become dangerous when used inappropriately. There are those who use dangerous products badly. The difference between companies that implement foreseeable risk aggressively and consistently can usually predict how customers might use them badly or incorrectly. Of course, Murphy's Law and the Darwin Award candidates can always find new and innovative ways to jeopardize themselves and others. This is the end of module number 1. To review, most organizations have the potential to produce defective products or services. Learning from history can lead to not repeating its mistakes. Each organization is a unique and complex organism. The health of your company can be diagnosed, treated, and improved. There are 2 types of risk, assumed and foreseeable. Implementing the tools of foreseeable risk can avoid liability and increase success.